folks, welcome to a series of 5 classes of Pilates targeted specifically for the cyclist body. Thank you for jumping on board with me and giving your body some love with some functional movement and some Pilates. If you've got a mat, great, you'll have that down on the floor. If you don't have a mat, then you could just be literally on a towel or on the carpet. Either is fine. A mat is just a little bit kinder to your body in a few aspects. Just be careful of where you set your mat up. Make sure the surroundings are nice and safe. Make sure there's no furniture and things like that that you're gonna accidentally run into. If anything that I ask you to do, you know is not right for your body, you're going to leave it out. It will literally be minutes before we jump on and do the next exercise. So don't do anything that you know that is foreign or not right for your body. Listen to your body. If it needs a rest, take a rest. We're going to work through some bits and pieces. The classes will progress as we go along. I'm always available via email if you have any queries or concerns, so feel free to always just drop me a line. Pardon me. And we're going to get started. We're going to lie down on our mats. We can do quite a bit of work lying down our mats over the next 5 classes. If when you lie down on the mat that you feel that your head alignment is sort of more like this or like this, then you're going to slide a little towel underneath your head. You want to have that nice alignment. If it's uncomfortable for you to have neutral because your head's slightly forwards, then you're going to just use a little rolled up towel to put underneath your head. I'm going to start with an imagery of a clock, literally a clock like is on your watch. We're going to use that clock imagery underneath our pelvis to get your lower backs moving. So in a minute we're going to lie down. What you're going to imagine is that you two have a piece of paper like this with a clock on it, and that clock is going to end up underneath your pelvis. So I'm going to lie my clock down. There's a 12 at this end and a 6 at this end and a 3 and a 9. My head is going to go to the end where the 12 is. So that's going to lie underneath my lower back or my pelvis. So you're just going to imagine that you've got an imaginary one. This will all make sense in a second. So you're going to lie down. You've got that imaginary clock underneath you. So literally that 12 is underneath my belly button and the 6 is down between my legs. The 3 and 9 of the clock are my left and right hip bone. I'm just going to leave that there for the moment and we're going to come back to that in a minute. So the first thing you're going to do is your knees are bent, your feet are flat on the mat, and we want to just look at your alignment. So you want to have your knees lined up with your hip bones. So there's my 2 hip bones pointing towards the ceiling. I'm going to line my knees up with my hip bones, and then I'm going to line my feet up with my knees. So your feet are in line with your knees, which are in line with your hips. So we're going to work on creating that alignment within your body as a recognised pattern. So shoulders are nice and relaxed. You're going to make sure that your chin's up off of your chest. So you've got that nice little gap between your chin and your chest. So you haven't tucked your head forwards. Like we said earlier, if you feel that your head is doing a bit of this, you might put a little towel underneath your head. Okay, take your hands, place your hands on the base of your rib cage, and I want you to have your middle fingers touching each other. So your middle fingers are just touching each other. Hands are resting on the base of your ribs, middle fingers are touching. We're going to start with some breathing. So you're going to breathe in through your nose if you can, and you're going to breathe out through your mouth. So you're breathing in through your nose, and you're breathing out through your mouth. So you're just going to settle into that. You're going to take some nice big deep breaths. As you breathe in through your nose will act like a little filter. So that is going to filter the air that is coming into your lungs. And you want to exhale out through your mouth. Exhaling through your mouth will allow you to get all the air out of your lungs that you can. As you're breathing, I want your ribs to be moving. So you should feel your ribs moving underneath your hands. And in a perfect world, and not many of us sit in the perfect world, in a perfect world, your middle fingers would be coming apart. So as you take those nice big deep breaths in through your nose, you'll feel your ribs coming apart, middle fingers coming apart, and then exhale to let all the air out of your lungs that you can. You're going to do 2 more breaths. Big deep breath in. Allow those ribs to expand. Exhale to let all that air out. 1 more breath pattern for me. Big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. We're going to keep one hand on our ribs. We're going to take our other hand and we're going to put it on our belly. So we're going to breathe with your stomachs now. So you're going to breathe with your bellies. So you're going to breathe in, and as you breathe in, you're going to feel your belly lifting up underneath your hand, and then you're going to breathe out, and you're going to feel that belly gently dropping back down. So as you breathe in, you're going to feel your belly lifting, and as you breathe out, you feel that belly gently dropping back down. So you're going to keep breathing, the belly lifts and lowers. That movement is created by your diaphragm. So we're accentuating your breath pattern, and as you breathe, your diaphragm will drop down from the base of your rib cage to allow room for your lungs to fill up with air. That diaphragm lifts and lowers, and it pushes on your internal organs, and that's what you're feeling moving underneath your hand. You're going to do 2 more breath patterns. Big deep breath in, allow that belly to lift, and then exhale to slowly let that air out. And 1 more breath pattern for me. Big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. You're going to bring your arms down by your side, and I'm actually going to get you to turn your palms to the ceiling. Now, if palms to the ceiling is really uncomfortable for you, I want you to turn your palms down. But as cyclists, we end up being in the flexion a lot of time and curled forwards, and our shoulders get a little rolled forwards. So by putting your palms up, you get that nice little stretch through your chest. Okay, go back to the clock imagery. So the 12 of that clock is underneath your belly button. The 6 is down between your legs. 3 and 9 are your left and your right hip bone. So we're going to move today between 12 and we're going to move between 6. So right now, in your spine, there is a little arch. It's around about where that clock is. There is a little arch underneath your back. That is your neutral spine. Everybody's arch is a little bit different. So you're going to take a breath in. And as you breathe out, you're going to roll your pelvis backwards, and you're going to push your back onto number 12 of that clock. That little arch in your back will have disappeared. Then you are going to roll your pelvis forwards. So you're going to go the other way, down to number 6, and you're going to let your back arch right up off of the mat. And then you're going to roll your pelvis backwards. You're going to feel your spine flatten and push down gently onto that number 12 of your clock. And then you're going to roll your pelvis forwards, and you're going to let your back arch. So breathing. As you roll backwards, you're going to try and breathe out. As you roll forwards, you're going to try and breathe in. So you're just going to move in your own time, backwards and forwards. Try to move with each breath pattern. And then start to think about what's happening with your knees. Try and keep them still. Try not to let them sway around. Your head's going to move. Your chin will pop in towards your chest. Your chin will go up towards the ceiling. And that's okay. But try and keep your knees nice and still. We're going to do 1 more each way. So we're going to breathe out to roll our pelvis backwards and allow our spine to flatten into our mat. And then we're going to roll the pelvis forwards. We're really going to let that back arch up. And then we're going to rest in neutral. So you've just moved your lumbar spine and warmed those muscles up. You're going to move your palms down. I want you to do that by swiveling from your wrists. So you've swiveled your wrists and your palms are now down. That helps you keep that broad shoulder feeling. We're going to come into some bridges. Feet are firmly down on the mat. Arms are just gently engaged into your mat. So it's about a 10 to 15% engagement. We're not jamming anything on. We're going to take a breath in. And as we breathe out, we're going to roll our pelvis backwards onto number 12 of that clock. And then we're going to start to lift our hips and our back slowly up off of the mat. We're going to go to the base of our shoulder blades. We're going to breathe in. And we're going to breathe out to slowly come down. So you want to go as slowly as you can. You're trying to get length in your spine. Okay, the pelvis rolls through neutral at the bottom. So inhale first. Gentle tilt back, spine imprints. You flattened your back into the mat. And then you're slowly lifting up into that nice, long, strong bridge and opening through your hips. Pause there, take a breath in, and then breathe out to come down. Try to keep your knees stable and still. So you're going to bridge in your own time. Some of the things you're thinking about are your feet. They are firmly on the mat. You have even weight distribution right across your feet as you're coming up into your bridge. Pause at the top, breath in, and slowly down. So you want to breathe out as you go up. And breathe out as you come back down. Don't overthink the breathing. It will come in due course. Knees are still. We're going to do 2 more. Feet firmly on the back mat, tilting backwards into that bridge position, opening up high enough that you get that nice stretch and opening through the front of your hips, and then slowly down. Keep the knees still. Let the pelvis roll through neutral at the bottom. You've got 1 to go. Inhale first, gentle tilt back, spine imprints, and then lift up into that nice, long, strong bridge. Take a breath in, and then slowly come back down. Breathe out as you come all the way, and let your pelvis roll through neutral. Pause there. Let's do a little hamstring stretch. So grab hold of your left leg, interlace your hands behind your thigh, and pull that leg in towards your chest. Now, straighten your leg if you can. If that's difficult for you, just keep it bent. If it bothers your knee to straighten your leg, keep it bent. You should feel that stretch in the back of your thigh. We're going to stay here for a couple of breaths, and then we're going to add what I call a neural floss. So we're going to literally floss the nerve in your leg. If this bothers you, you're going to leave the neural floss out. Okay, so you're going to pull your toes to your nose and point your toes straight to the ceiling. So your toes come to your nose and point your toes straight to the ceiling. So you're just flexing and pointing that foot. If it bothers you, just leave it out. Focus on the hamstring stretch. We're going to do 2 more each way. Toes to nose, toes to ceiling. Last one. Then let go of that leg. Slowly place it back down onto your mat. Change sides. Right leg comes up. Interlace the hands behind the leg. Pull the leg in towards your chest. It's straight if you can. If it bothers your knee, it's slightly bent. You want to feel that stretch to the back of your hamstring. One more breath here. Then we're going to add your neural floss. So pull your toes to your nose and point your toes to the ceiling. So toes to nose, toes to ceiling. So you're just flexing and pointing and flexing and pointing and flexing and pointing. Okay, we're going to do 1 more each way. Toes to nose, toes to ceiling. Then relax the foot and lower the leg back down onto the mat. Return your feet back into hip width distance apart where you started. You're going to bring your arms down by your side for me. We're going to work with what's called some arm arcs. First thing we're going to talk about is your rib to hip connection. So right now there is a gap between your bottom rib and your pelvic bone. Bottom rib, pelvic bone. You want to maintain the gap. That's called your rib to hip connection. You maintain that by engaging your abdominals. So provided your ribs are still, your abdominals will be working to maintain that gap. This will make sense as we go along. So your arms are down by your side, shoulders are nice and relaxed, arms are long. You're going to take a breath in, you're going to breathe out to float both arms just straight up towards the ceiling, nice long arms, and then you're going to bring them back down on your mat. So we're just going to start to pattern the body and the brain. So we're breathing in first, we breathe out to float those nice long arms to the ceiling, and then we're bringing them all the way back down. We're going to do 1 more like that. So inhaling first, exhale, float those arms to the ceiling, and then bring them back down. Okay, we're going to start to go further back, but remember to maintain your rib to hip connection. So as your arms go to the ceiling and go further back, that little gap that's between your ribs and your pelvis is not changing sides. If you feel that start to move, then that's as far back as your arms are going, and then you'll bring them all the way back down by your side. So as you take your arms backwards, you're going to the range so that you control the stability in your torso. So if you feel your ribs starting to lift and flare towards the ceiling, that's as far back as you go. You want to maintain your rib to hip connection. Your arms stay long and straight. Your brain will say, if I bend my elbows, this is so much easier, but you're not going to bend your elbows. Your breath is matching your movement. You're going to do 2 more. Breathe in first, breathe out to float your arms to the ceiling, take them over your head as far as you can without losing that rib to hip connection, and then bring them all the way down. You might find you've been able to get a little bit further with each one. You've got 1 more. Inhale, exhale, float those arms to the ceiling, take them further over the top of your head as far as you can manage, and then bring them all the way back down. Arms are going to stay down by your side. You're going to wriggle your knees and feet together to touch. We're going to do what's called Bentley Fallout. We're going to go back to the imagery of the clock. So before we were moving our pelvis between 12 and 6, now we don't want to move it at all. You don't want to feel any movement between 12 and 6, and you also don't want to feel any movement between 3 and 9 of that imaginary clock, so no movement sideways. So arms are down by your side, shoulders are nice and relaxed. We're going to lead this with your left leg. Your right leg's going to stay still. You're going to take a breath in, and you're going to breathe out to let your left leg draw out towards the side without your pelvis moving. And then you're going to bring the leg back to the centre. So you're going to alternate legs. You're going to go to the right leg. So you're breathing out to take the leg out towards the side, and then you're breathing in to draw it back in. So you're going to alternate sides in your own time. Your hips are still. There should be no movement through your pelvis. If you feel your pelvis starting to move, then you're going to change the range. You're not going to take your leg quite so far. You want to stabilise through your hips and pelvis, and you want to mobilise the leg. So we're mobilising the hip joint, but we're keeping the pelvis stable and still. The movement is smooth. The leg glides out towards the side, and then it glides back in. So we're going to do 1 more on each side. Gently allow the leg to go out towards the side without the pelvis moving. The right knee is not moving. Stable and still. And you've got one more. Exhale. Gently let that leg go out towards the side. Draw back into the center and pause. You're going to place your feet back into hip width. So I want you to wriggle your feet apart again so your feet are back in line with your knees. You're going to take your hands and you're going to interlace them behind your head. So you're going to have your ring finger and your little finger at the base of your skull, and the rest of your hands are running down the back of your neck. Your elbows are wide. You can just see them in your peripheral vision, and you're trying to touch your elbows on the opposite sides of the room. You're going to keep them nice and wide. Your core is switched on. So by that, if you think of gently pulling your belly button back towards your spine, your abdominals are switched on. That again is a 10 to 15% engagement. If you jam it on, it's going to get fatigued really quickly. We're trying to create some muscle memory here, so we've just got 10 to 15%. Belly button is just gently pulled back towards your spine. Breathing. So we're going to breathe in first. We're going to breathe out as we lift your head, neck and shoulders, and you're going to look directly to the middle of your thighs, and then you're going to lower yourself all the way down. Now remember, those shoulders are nice and good, so those elbows are nice and wide. Inhale first, exhale up you come. Gaze to the middle of your thighs, just lifting to your shoulder blades, and then you're going back down. So keep those tummy muscles switched on. You're breathing in first, you breathe out as you come up, gaze to the middle of your thighs, nice wide elbows for me, and then lower yourself all the way down. As you're doing these, you should feel how your spine goes from neutral with that little arch to imprinted. Your spine is now flattened down into your mat. We're going to do 2 more. If you want to have a rest, you're having a rest. Inhale first, exhale up you come, gaze to the middle of your thighs for me, and then lower yourself all the way down. You've got 1 to go. Inhale first, breathe out as you come up, look to the middle of your thighs where your eyes go, your body will go, and then lower yourself all the way down. Pause there, take your hands from behind your head, reach them up over the top of you behind your ears. Stretch your legs out nice and long for me. I want you to point your toes away from you, and I want you to open up through your fingertips and stretch your palms. Toes pointed away from you will give you some nice length through the front of your hips and open up your hips a little bit. Your back might have lifted up off of the mat a bit, that's okay. You're reaching as far back behind you as you can. You're going to float your arms back to the ceiling, and you're going to bring them down, and you're going to rest them down by your side. Okay, we're going to roll onto our side. As we roll onto our side, we're going to cradle our head in on our arm. You're going to have your knees bent. So you've rolled onto your side, you've got your head resting in on your arm, and your knees are bent. Now, your arm could be straight or it's bent. If your shoulder's a bit grumpy and this position bothers you, you could put a pillow underneath your head or a rolled up towel. Otherwise, head's just resting on your bicep pretty much. My feet are behind me, so they're in line with my hips, so my knees haven't come too far forwards. So my feet and my hips are pretty much lined up with the edge of my mat. Well, they're in line with my mat. My chin's up off of my chest, so you want to be looking across the room. If your chin is tucking towards your chest, your head is not in neutral. You want to have your head in neutral. By looking across the room, you'll have yourself in that position. And take your hand, you're going to put it on top of your hip, and you're going to push your hip away from you. So you've gone from having your waistline touching the mat. By pushing your hip away from you, you've lifted your waistline and you've created a little gap underneath your waistline. You want to keep that little gap, so you don't want to let that drop back down, okay? So you're going to keep your hand on top of your hip for that position for the moment. Your feet are going to stay touching and your hip's going to stay still. You don't want your hip to tip backwards. Then you're going to lift just your knee up off of your bottom knee, and then you're going to lower it down. So my feet stay touching, and I just lift my knee up to the point I can without my hip rolling backwards, and then I'm lowering it down. And as you open and close that knee, the rest of your body's not moving. That little gap that you created within your waistline is still there, and you're breathing. You're inhaling as you lift your knee, and you're exhaling as you lower it down. You're going to do 2 more. Lift the knee up, and then lower it down, and you've got 1 more. Lift and lower. Okay, pause. Stretch the top leg out long and straight and have your heel in line with your hip. Pull your toes towards your nose so your foot is flexed. You're going to keep your heel in line with your hip, so I don't want your leg to creep forwards. Keep it in line with your hip. You can keep your hand on your hip or you can bring it on the mat in front of you for a bit of stability, but I don't want you to take your whole body weight into that hand. You're going to lift your top leg up off of your bottom leg and then you're going to lower it down. As you lift and lower your leg, you still have the gap that you created in your waistline. So that waistline is not dropping back down. As you lift and lower your leg is really long. You're trying to scrape your heel up the wall on the opposite side of the room. Your breath is matching your movement and you're not lifting too high that you feel that waistline drop down. I'm going to do 2 more. Lift the leg up and lower it down. And 1 more. And then just put your foot down on the mat and pause for a second. In a minute we're going to kick forwards and backwards. Again, you can keep your hand on your hip or you can bring it down onto your mat. That might just be a little finger grip, but I don't want you to take too much of your body weight into your hand. You can choose though. Hand on the mat will give you some stability. You're going to lift your leg up and you're going to keep that foot flexed for the moment. You're going to kick that leg forwards and then you're going to point your toe as you take that leg backwards. You're going to inhale with your flexed foot as you come forwards and you're going to exhale as you go backwards. Your body is still, your waistline still has that gap and your leg is really long. So as you bring your leg forwards, again, you're trying to drag your heel onto the opposite side of the room, pointing your toe as you go backwards. You're trying to get your toes onto the other side of the wall. Glide forwards on an inhale breath for me and glide backwards on an exhale breath. We're going to do 1 more each. Bring the leg forwards, have the foot flexed, point the toe, take it backwards. When you're in the center again, just lower your leg down and rest. You're going to bring your hand down on the mat if it's not already there. You're going to lift your top leg back up. You're going to take it backwards as far as you possibly can. You're going to point your toes. You're going to take your hand off of the mat. You're going to reach your arm on a nice line, diagonal line, and you're going to give yourself a nice big stretch from your fingers right down to your toes. You're opening up through that hip and you're lengthening your body. 1 more breath, and then lower everything all the way down. So you're going to roll yourself over. We're going to do your other side. You could literally flip yourself over or come with me and turn yourself around to the other end of your mat. Feet lined up with your hips so your knees aren't too far forwards. Come down again, cradle your head in on your arm. Again, that arm could be straight, otherwise it's bent. And you could have your head on a pillow if you prefer. Chin's up off of your chest so you've got that nice little gap. You're looking directly across your room. Take your hand, place it on your hip. Push your hip away from you. So again, you've lifted your waistline. You feel that little gap that you've created underneath there. You're going to keep that gap. Hand can stay on your hip or you can put it on the mat. Either is fine, but keep the hip in that position. Feet are going to stay touching. You're going to start to lift that top knee up off of the bottom knee and then you're going to lower it down. As you lift that knee, you've got an inhale breath. As you lower it, you've got an exhale breath. As you lift and lower that knee, your hips are still. So you don't want to lift too high that you feel your hips tip backwards. If you feel them tipping backwards, then you're going to change the range and make it smaller. As you lift your knee up, you've got an inhale breath. As you lower it down, you've got an exhale breath. You've got 2 to go. Lift the knee up and then lower it down. And last one. Then you're going to pause at the bottom and you're going to rest. You're going to stretch your top leg out long and straight, and again you've got your heel in line with your hip, so try not to let that leg creep forwards. Your hand is still on top of your hip, or if you prefer you've got it on the mat, but you've still got your gap in your waistline. And if it's on your hands on the mat, you're not putting too much body weight in that. Your toes are pulled towards your nose. You're going to lift your leg up towards the ceiling without losing your waistline gap, and then you're going to lower it down. So as you lift and lower, if you feel that you're losing that waistline gap, don't lift so high. So work within the range that you can control. Inhaling as you lift the leg and exhaling as you lower. And keep the length in it. Make it as long as you possibly can. You're trying to drag your heel up the wall on the opposite side of the room. Let's do 2 more. Lift the leg up just to the height that you can control the waistline and lower it down. And last one for me. And then pause and rest for a microsecond. In a minute we're going to kick forwards and backwards. Your hand could come in front on the mat for stability, or you can keep it on your hip. Either is fine. So you've lifted your leg back up, you've flexed your foot, and you're going to kick forwards. And then you're going to point your toe, and you're going to go backwards. You're doing that within the range so that you can keep your hips still. So your kick doesn't need to be big. It can be big, but you want to maintain your torso stability. Hand on the mat will give you a bit of assistance with that. The leg is long. You're stretching it out as long as you can. Inhaling as you kick that leg forwards and exhaling as you take it back as far as you can without your waistline dropping. 2 to go. Glide the leg forwards and then take it backwards. And you've got 1 more. Inhale to bring it forwards. Exhale to go back. When you get to the center, lower your leg down. Bring your hand off of your hip and put it on the mat. Lift your top leg up. Take it backwards behind you as far as you possibly can. Take your hand off of the mat and reach on a great big diagonal line. So you're going to reach from your fingers down to your toes. You're getting that nice stretch all the way through your hip and your body. You're going to take 1 more breath in and you're going to lower everything all the way down. We're going to flip you onto your stomach. So you're going to roll onto your stomach. You're going to put your arms in what I refer to as a goalpost position. So think American goalpost, that's what we're looking for. So you'll come down on your stomach. Hands, I want you to put them, if you're on a mat, a bit wider than the mat. If you're not on a mat, then a bit wider than the towel that you're on, or imagine you're lying on a mat. You want that little bit of extra width. If they're on the mat, they're too close. You're going to feel a little bit squashed. So my forearms, my wrists and my elbows are on the carpet outside my mat. My head is resting on my mat and I'm going to slide inner thighs together. So they're going to move a little bit, but we're going to start with inner thighs together. Shoulders are nice and relaxed and neck is nice and long. So you haven't tucked your chin too far in towards your chest. You're going to switch your abdominal muscles on. So you're going to imagine you're trying to lift your belly button off of the mat and you'll feel your abdominals engage. So you feel that connection of your abdominal muscles. You want to hold that again 10 to 15%. We're going to start to open up through your chest. So you're going to take a breath in, you're going to breathe out, and as you breathe out I want you to lift your face and your chest up off of the mat for me, and then I want you to lower yourself all the way back down. So you're breathing in first, you breathe out to come up, you're just lifting to the bottom of your rib cage and then you're lowering down. So you're just going to get you moving. You're going to start to think about what's happening with your arms. As you come up, exhale, breath just to the bottom of the ribs and lower. We want very little force into your arms. So you're not pushing with your arms to come up, you're making your back muscles do the work. As you come up, there is no pressure into those arms, you're not turning it into a form of a push-up, you're just lifting to the bottom of your ribs or as high as you comfortably can and lowering down. We're going to do 2 more. Inhale first, exhale, just to the bottom of those ribs and then lower down. Got 1 to go. Inhale first, exhale, up you come, and then lower all the way down. Pause here. Take your hands, put them down by your side with your palms facing to the ceiling. Legs. Take your big toes and touch them together and let your ankles flop out towards the side, for want of a better word. Arms are long. Reach your fingers right down towards your toes. We're going to come into what's called some darts. So, similar movement. You're going to take a breath in. You're going to breathe out to lift your face, lift your chest, and float your arms up off of your mat, and then lower yourself all the way down. Feet are staying down. Inhale first. Exhale, up you come. So again, you're just lifting to the bottom of your ribs, but your arms are joining you now, and then lower all the way down. Now those arms are strong. You should feel the back of your arms working. Inhale first, exhale, up you come. Palms going up towards the ceiling. Shoulder blades glide together gently, and then lowering all the way down. Feet are still staying nice and relaxed on the mat. We've got 3 to go. Inhale first, exhale, up you come. Lengthen through those fingers, and then lower all the way down. You've got 1 to go. Inhale first, exhale, up you come, and then lower all the way down. We're going to go into a child's pose stretch. So you're going to take your hips back towards your heels. If you can, you're going to have your arms in front. If arms in front bothers you, you're going to put your arms down by your side. Otherwise, arms are in front. You can have a bit of a gap between your knees. So you can sink your hips further back towards your heels by having that little gap between your knees. Once you're down here, you're breathing. And you're breathing into the back of your ribs. So you're taking nice big deep breaths into your back of your ribs, inhaling and exhaling. Folks, if you're not used to breathing as much as we are through these sessions, you might find you feel a little lightheaded or dizzy, so just be cautious as you're moving yourself around. 2 more breath patterns. Big deep breath in, open up through those ribs, and then exhale to let that air out. And you've got 1 more breath in for me. Big deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. We're going to come back down onto our stomachs, and we're going to do what's called some heel beats. So you're going to wriggle yourself down. You're going to come down, and you're going to rest your head on your hands. So you're going to put one hand on top of the other, and you're going to rest your forehead down on your hands. We're going to do some heel beats. So we're going to tap your heels together, and the key is to have strong heel beats, long legs, and the body still. So I'm going to walk you through all of that. So your head's resting down on your hands. Shoulders are nice and relaxed, so watch you haven't brought your shoulders by your ears. Tummy muscles are switched on again. So you feel like your belly button is trying to lift up off of the mat again. So you've got that nice little gentle lift of your belly button. You're going to keep that engagement because you want to try not to let your body bounce around. That will make sense in a second. Okay, so you're going to take a breath in. You're going to breathe out to lift your legs up. You're going to turn your heels in towards each other and your toes apart. And then you're going to start to tap, tap, tap. So you're tapping your heels together. So your heels are touching each other. You're tapping nice and strong. You should feel your inner thighs working. And you're trying to keep your body still. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause and lower your legs down. So when your body bounces around a little bit, just make sure your core is just gently still switched on. It's your core stability that's going to keep the body still and just help you move your legs. So remember, nice long legs and strong heel beats. So you're going to take a breath in, you're going to breathe out to lift both legs up, turn those heels in towards each other, and then you're going to start to tap, tap, tap. So you're tapping your heels together, toes pointed out towards the side, inner thighs and glutes are working, you're breathing. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause and lower both legs all the way down. We're going to do 1 more set, folks. Core's gently switched on. You feel your belly button trying to lift up off of the mat. Set yourself up, take a breath in, breathe out to lift your legs, turn your heels in towards each other, and again start to tap, 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 tap. So nice strong heel beats, inner thighs and glutes are working, body's nice and still, try not to let yourself bounce. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause and lower them all the way down. Let's return back to that child's pose stretch, and we're going to take it into an oblique version. So again, you're going to sink your hips back towards your heels, and if possible, your arms are in front. A little gap between your knees if you like. Try to drop your hips back towards your heels and just breathe here for a moment. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put your left hand on the edge of the mat. You're going to take your right hand and put it on top of your left. So your right hand is now on top of your left. Then you're going to sink your hips back towards your heels, and you're going to breathe into your right ribs. So you're getting that nice stretch all the way down through your sides there. We've got 1 more breath pattern there. Then you're going to walk your hands through the middle of the mat, and you're going to put them on the other side. So both hands are now on the right hand side of the mat, and again you're going to sink your hips back towards your heels. You're going to hang here for a few moments. You're going to take some nice big deep breaths. Then you're going to wriggle your hands back into the middle of your mat, and you're going to come up onto all fours. I'm going to go into what's called quadruped. So you want to have hands underneath shoulders and knees underneath hips. So you've created a box shape, for want of a better word. When you're here, if your wrists are a bit grumpy, you could put yourself on your knuckles. Otherwise, you've got your hands on your mat. Your weight bearing through your little fingers. So you can physically lift your thumb up off of the mat. If you can't lift your thumb, then you are weight bearing through the inside of your hands. There's lots of little intricate bones on the inside around that thumb area. We want you to weight bear through the outside of your hands. So you want to be able to lift your thumbs. Your gaze. You're looking about another 2 hand paces in front of you. So you're nice and broad through your shoulders, and your gaze is about another couple of hand paces in front. Your back is nice and strong. The purpose of this exercise is to keep your body still and just move your limbs. Arms first. Choose your first arm, slide it out along your mat, and lift it up to the height you can without your shoulder moving. Put your hand back to the mat and slide it back to where it started from. And then change. Slide your opposite arm out, lift it up, make it long, bring it back to the mat and slide it underneath. So you're going to alternate sides. You're breathing out as your arm goes out and up, and you're breathing in to bring it back down. You're working within the range that's good for your own shoulders. So if you feel your shoulders starting to sort of hinge up and lift, then don't lift your arm quite so high. And one might be well different to the other. My right is different to my left. My right is slightly rolled forwards, and my left allows me much more range. One more each side. Glide the arm out and lift it up with control and bring it down. Got one more. Slide it out and lift and bring it down. Okay, hands are going to stay on the mat. We're going to work with your legs. So you've still got your weight bearing through little fingers, thumbs can lift. Hips are still. Imagine on the top of your pelvis is a cup of coffee. You're going to try not to move that cup of coffee. Let's do left leg first. Slide your toes along your mat. Lift your leg up to hip height without twisting your hip. Put your foot back to the mat and glide it back underneath. And then change. Slide the leg out, lift it up just to hip height, and then bring it back down. Keep that little gap that you created between your knees. So you're going to alternate sides. As you go out and up, you're imagining there's a cup of coffee sitting on your pelvis. You're trying not to spill that cup of coffee. As you're going out and up, you're focusing on length. Make that leg really long. You're trying to touch your toes on the opposite side of the room. Your breath is helping you. So we're going to do one more on each side. Exhale as you glide the leg out and lift it up for me, and then bring it down with as much control as you can. Keep the gap between your knees. You've got one more. Glide them out, lift them up, and then bring them back down. Okay, opposite arm and leg. Take a breath in. Breathe out to glide opposite arm and leg out, lift them up, and then bring them down with control. So you're going to alternate sides. The focus has not changed. You're just working within the range that you can keep the stability in your body. Your limbs are long. You're trying to touch them on the opposite sides of the room. Your imaginary cup of coffee is still there. Focus on the stability when you bring the limbs back down as much as you are when you take them on the way out. Let's do one more on each side, or whatever makes you even. Glide them out with control. Make them really long, and then bring them down. Got one to go. Inhale first. Exhale, out you go. Nice long limbs. And then bring them all the way down and pause. Going to go into some cat stretches. So you're going to let your head drop down between your arms, and you're going to arch your back right up towards the ceiling and open up through your spine. You're going to bring your tummy down towards your mat, and you're going to take your gaze across the room in front of you and take your spine in the other direction. Then you're going to drop your head down between your arms again. Gentle breathing as you're doing these. Arch your back right up towards the ceiling for me. And then bring your tummy down towards the mat and take your gaze across the room. You're going to do one more in each direction. Allow your head to drop down between your arms. Arch your back right up towards the ceiling for me. And you've got one to go. Tummy comes down, gaze goes out across the room. And then you're going to rest in neutral. You're going to return yourself back down onto your mat. We're going to come into what I call some book openings. You're going to cradle your head down on your arm again and lie on your side with your knees bent. So same position that we were in before. Head's resting on your arm, your bicep. Arm could be straight or bent. Chin's up off of the chest. It's got that little gap. Your feet are behind you and they're roughly in line with your hips. So your knees are not too far forwards. You want that nice straight line between your feet and your hips. Your top arm's going to come on the floor in front of you. So your head rests on one arm, the other arm comes on the floor in front of you. And your hand's in line with your shoulder. So you're not too high, not too low. You're gently squeezing your knees together. So you're going to keep your knees touching each other. They're not going to slip apart. Your hip is still, so you're not going to let your hip roll backwards. We're going to start with 2 of these to the ceiling, and then we're going to add on, and that will make sense in a second. So you're going to take a breath in. You're going to breathe out to bring your arm up towards the ceiling, and your gaze is going to follow your hand. And then you're going to bring your hand back down and rest it on the floor. So inhale first, Exhale, arm comes to the ceiling, gaze follows the hand, and then bring the hand back down to the floor. Okay, we're going to add on. So, work within the range that's good for your body. Arm comes to the ceiling, and then go further back. But remember, your knees are still and your hips are still. So work within the range that you can control. Then lengthen your arm to the ceiling, make it really long, and bring it all the way back to the floor. Okay, so inhale first. Exhale, arm goes to the ceiling. Your gaze is following it, so you're watching your hand. Your knees are glued together still, your hips are stable and still, and your arm is really long. And then lengthen your arm to the ceiling and bring it back to the floor. Okay, we're going to do 2 more. So we inhale first, we exhale to take our arm to the ceiling. We're moving into our rotation. We haven't let our knees slip apart. And then we're lengthening the arm to the ceiling and we're bringing it back to the floor. So we're going to do 1 more. And on the last one, we're going to hang out there and we're going to stretch. So your arm goes to the ceiling, you move into your rotation, you go to the point where you just can't get any further without your knees moving. And at that point, let your knees slip apart a bit. Your hip is going to drop back a bit, and you're going to see if you can get your arm a bit closer to the ground. And you're just going to stay there. If it bothers you, you're going to pull yourself out of it. Otherwise, just stay there. You should feel that lovely stretch all the way through the front of your chest. Okay, before you come back, squeeze your knees together. Switch your abdominal muscles on. Take a breath in. Breathe out to lengthen your arm to the ceiling and bring it all the way back to the floor. Lovely. Let's roll over and do your other side. So take your time moving around. Remember, if you haven't done a lot of breathing like this before in the past, it can make you feel a little bit lightheaded. Put yourself in that same position. So feet, they're roughly in line with my hips. My head is resting in on my arm. My chin's up off of my chest, so I'm looking across the room. I'm going to tap my hand on the floor in front of me. My hand is in line with my shoulders. Again, my knees are glued together. They're not going to move. We're going to take a breath in. We're going to breathe out to bring our arm up to the ceiling, and our gaze follows our hand. And then we bring our hand all the way back down and rest it on the floor. So inhale first, exhale, arm comes to the ceiling, gaze follows that hand, and then bring it back down to the floor. Okay, we're going to move into rotation. So your arm goes to the ceiling, and then you're rotating further back. But remember, your knees are glued together. Then you're going to lengthen your arm to the ceiling, and you're going to bring it back to the floor. Okay, you're going to go again. Inhale first, exhale, arm goes to the ceiling. Move into rotation, knees are squeezed together, hips are stable and they're still. Lengthen your arm to the ceiling and bring it all the way back to the floor. Okay, you've got 2 to go, folks. Inhale first, exhale, arm goes to the ceiling. Move into your rotation, nice long arm, knees are still. Lengthen the arm to the ceiling and back to the floor. Okay, last one, we're going to hang out there. So first of all, you're going to go to the ceiling. You're going to move into rotation. You're going to go to the point where you can't get any further without your knees moving. And at that point, your knees can slip apart a bit. Arms going to go further to the ground. You're just going to let yourself hang there and stretch. Just go to the position that's comfortable for your body. If this is uncomfortable for you, pull yourself out of it. You've got 2 more breaths here. Breath will facilitate movement. You need to breathe to be able to move. Okay, switch your tummy muscles on. Squeeze your knees together. Lengthen your arm back to the ceiling and then bring it all the way back to the floor. Lovely. I'm going to carefully come up to a sitting position and we're going to sit first. So just bring yourself up to a sitting position for a second. We're going to come up to standing. If you feel dizzy or lightheaded, you're going to stay sitting for a bit and then you'll come up to standing when you're ready. Otherwise, come up to standing with me and we're going to do what's called some standing roll downs. So we're going to stand up. We're going to stand with our feet hip width distance apart. So you've got a little gap between your feet and you're going to stand up nice and tall. I'm going to put myself in a sideways view because I want you to focus on keeping your hips in line with your heels. So I don't want your hips to swing backwards in this exercise. To assist you, you're going to distribute the weight in your feet 60-40. So I want you to have 60% of your weight in the front of your foot, the balls of your foot and your toes. So you might, feel a little bit like you're going to fall forwards, but you're not going to let yourself fall forwards. 40% is through your heels. You're going to stand nice and tall. You're going to take a breath in. You're going to keep that weight distribution. You're going to gently bring your chin towards your chest and you are going to roll your spine forwards. I'm not fussed how far you come, but I do want you to keep your hips in line with your heels. And then you're going to pause. You're going to take a breath in. You're going to lead with your tailbone. You're going to tuck your tailbone under. You're going to come up through your lower back. You're going to come up through your ribs. And then you're going to stand nice and tall with your shoulders away from your ears. You're going to take a breath in. You're going to gently tuck your chin to your chest. And you're going to roll forwards for me. You've still got 60% of your weight through the balls and the toes of your feet and 40% in your heels. You're going to pause. You're going to take a breath in. You're going to lead with your tailbone. You're going to roll yourself back up to the top. When you get there, you're just going to double check that you're not feeling dizzy or lightheaded. If you do, you're going to stay where you are. Otherwise, you're going to come with me. We've got 2 to go. Inhale first. Tuck the chin to the chest. Down you go. Heels and hips staying in alignment. When your heels and hips are in alignment, your back is moving. When your hips are not in alignment, i.e. they're swinging backwards, you are getting down there by moving your hips. We want you to move your spine. Stand nice and tall. You've got 1 to go. Breath in. Tuck the chin to the chest. Long breath out for me. And again, those arms are just hanging like they belong to ragdolls. Pause. Breathe in. Allow your tailbone to tuck, scoop through your belly, and slowly come back up to the top. And just pause there for a minute. I'm going to give your shoulders a little roll. You're going to roll them in one direction, and then you're going to roll them in the other. Okay, we're going to come into a little stretch. I'm going to ask you to come onto your tippy toes. If standing on tippy toes is not good for you, i.e. your ankle's a bit grumpy, you're going to stay flat-footed. So, you're going to breathe in. As you breathe out, you're going to come onto your tippy toes. You're going to take your arms out towards the side. You're going to bring your arms right up towards the ceiling. You're trying to touch your ceiling. Then you're going to open your arms as wide as you can. And you're going to bring your arms down like you're pushing them through water. So they're strong and they're controlled. Inhale first. Exhale. Arms go out towards the side. Take those arms right up towards the ceiling like you're trying to touch your ceiling. And then slowly lower. Arms come down. Heels return to the ground. You've got 1 to go. Inhale first. Exhale. Right to the ceiling. Try and touch. And then slowly, slowly lower all the way down. Wonderful. Again, you're going to roll your shoulders. You're going to roll them in one direction. Then you're going to roll them in the other. Lovely. You're going to focus on keeping your shoulders away from your ears. Enjoy this session. You can do it as many times as you like. It'll be good for your body. And you'll get the next one from me in due course next week. If you have any queries, you know where to find me. Just drop me an email. Have a good day, folks. Bye.